Forget not ready for prime time. You were just not ready for that team, no matter what. And the problem is your quarterback. And that much is clear. The defense gave it its all. The defense balled out. But the offense did nothing. And every time the Jets got that ball back in the fourth quarter with a chance to go down the field, drive, and all you need is a field goal, Zach got worse. It got worse and worse and worse. He was pathetic in the pocket. He was scattershot. He was just chucking. He wasn't throwing. He wasn't passing. No accuracy. He was just chucking. Just flat out chucking. And when he wasn't chucking, he was throwing bubble screens to guys that were covered and smashed in the backfield. It was just nothingness. When Zach Wilson, after the game, is asked, do you feel like you let down the defense? No. There is an element to that where I kind of understand. Because I think what Zach might be thinking is, and might be coached into saying, hey, don't make this into more than it has to be. If we start saying that we let down the defense, then the entire week is the offense let down the defense, and suddenly becomes mental games and inferiority complex and everything. Like, just keep it moving. So it's possible Zach Wilson's coached into saying that. Don't put this all on yourself. That's too big of a cross to bear. All these things. Like, it was everybody. And maybe Zach just there is trying to say we're a team. Whereas if, the offense wins 52-49, he's supposed to say the exact same thing. Do you feel like, or they lose 52-49, did the defense let you down? He's supposed to say no. So that's in play, that he was trying to say the right thing. However, in the same press conference, he says, well, you guys saw how windy it was out there. It was impossible to throw. Oh, excuses. Mac Jones didn't get into the end zone, but Mac was far more effective, far more efficient and accurate than Zach was. So blaming the wind, now we're starting to blame the wind. And then you have this report from SNY after the game. Sportsnet New York, which is the cable home of the Jets, this hit me. Sources inside the Jets' losing locker room tell SNY that Wilson was walking around after the game, quote, like he isn't the problem. It rubbed more than a few the wrong way, frustrating several others. There was a reputation of Zach Wilson coming out of BYU, where he was a pretty boy. He was a young man that had a lot of talent, but was immature, had an ego, and never hit adversity. To give you some sense of how comfortable things were growing up, his family is a very prominent family in Utah, and his uncle founded JetBlue. So, you're not exactly rubbing two pennies together hoping to make a nickel here. Your uncle founded JetBlue. And coming out of BYU, it was, hey, this kid has got a great arm. He's limber. He's athletic. He reminds people of a young Aaron Rodgers. But what he didn't have was adversity. What he didn't have was the grind, the belief that comes with hitting something of a downswell and coming out of it, being overlooked, having to work your way through things. Aaron Rodgers was not recruited to a power program coming out of high school, had to go to JUCO. Then goes to Cal and is overlooked the entire first round of the NFL draft. And Aaron Rodgers, while being prickly certainly, and maybe a little arrogant as well, is a guy that has been driven quite hard by himself very clearly over the years. Zach is not. Zach, for lack of a better phrase, is a bit of a punk. And was known as such coming out of BYU. His athletic traits are obvious, but a bit of a punk. And yesterday, I can defend being caught in a tough moment being asked, did you let down the defense? Because you're a second-year dude and you're not privy to spinning media narratives, and that's a tough question right off the bat. Do you own this loss? He says, no, I can deal with it. Don't blame the wind. And this report that he was walking around the locker room like it isn't his fault or it wasn't his problem is the problem. He's bad. He's not serviceable. He's not. Right now, the Jets don't trust him to throw the football. They don't want him to take chances. They know that only bad things can happen because he's not ready. And yes, he missed some time last year, and yes, he missed the preseason this year, but this was his 20th game started. And that's a season and a half. You're closing in on a season and a half. So now you're well into season number 2 as you make your way into the second half of this season. This is enough time to not be that bad. Justin Fields is starting to look the part, isn't he? Trevor Lawrence has looked the part this year, hasn't he? Zach Wilson's bad. He's not average. He's not mediocre. He's bad. And yesterday was the worst. Now, look, some of this is you go up against a Belichick defense. He knows how to scheme against young QBs. That's part of it, part of the equation. But the fact that we are a season and a half into Zach Wilson's tenure as the supposed savior of the Jets, and he is blaming the wind, he is saying he doesn't take the blame for this loss, and there are people inside the locker room that have been rubbed the wrong way by his attitude, nonchalant arrogance after this loss. And so it begins. And so it begins that this guy, again, is the wrong guy for the job. And the talent is one thing. But in the NFL, you can't be a hot shot brat. Baker Mayfield has proven that. Zach Wilson's proving that. Johnny Manziel proved that. The hot shot brat doesn't work because there's too many good guys coming after you, and you have to go to the nth degree of preparation, of execution, of leadership, of maturity. You have to be at that next level of those things. And I think about a guy like Chad Pennington a lot when I look at the Jets spin the wheel of quarterback saviors. You can chase talent. Sam Darnold had talent. Zach Wilson had talent. You can chase resume. Mark Sanchez had resume. But what do those three guys have in common? They weren't very mature. Pennington was. He was limited talent-wise, but he was mature. He was grounded. He was trustworthy. He was going to put in the work. I think it would always be better for a team like the Jets trying to get to a place where they're expected to be winners to have a guy like Chad Pennington versus a guy like Zach Wilson. Give me the guy that's limited talent-wise, but I know is going to put in the work. Now, you still got to have an arm. You still got to be able to operate an NFL offense. I'm not saying take any Jamoke off the street that just has, the effort thing down. But the big arm, athletic traits, that's a brat, is not going to work for the Jets because there's always going to be this pressure that exists over top of them that they haven't done it, that they haven't done it since Joe Namath, that they always collapse, that it always ends that way, that you need a guy in that locker room that even if he lost 10-3, goes to that podium and says, no excuses. I have to be better. I'm supposed to be the leader, and this is on me. I must be better. I will be better. We'll get back to the drawing board. I love these guys. My defense balled out for me, and it crushes me that I didn't do enough. The Jets need that guy right now. Even if that guy can't sit there at the 30-yard line and throw a dime, 62 yards downfield to the far hash. Zach Wilson did that at his pro day. Made everybody blush. Ooh, did you see those throws? His arm. Yeah, but what's inside his brain? What's inside his skull? What's his maturity level? I mean, we joked about it. I certainly joked about it as well. It was a really good riff and a really good gag. Zach Wilson hooked up with his mom's best friend. And then came to practice at training camp and was like, ha ha, what did I miss? Lost my phone. Ha ha ha. But, I mean, hooking up with your mom's best friend, and you see the type of baby he's being right now, now it starts to make sense. He's a child. This is not the guy the Jets need. He's not the guy. And it sucks to say because you're only into year 2 of the number 2 overall pick in a quarterback-rich draft, but he ain't the guy. And he's not going to become the guy because he's not going to grow up overnight. I don't think he's a bad guy. He's done stuff for charity. We've seen him in private moments seemingly act like a good guy. But in terms of pressure, in terms of leadership of other adults, in terms of being expected to be better than what you are, he has failed time and time and time again. And for yesterday, for that report to come out after the game, that guys in that locker room are PO'd at his attitude, that he's not the problem, gives you an insight into why it's not going to work with Zach, and that sucks. Because I've said this before, I don't root for any team to go through quarterback horrors because I don't want to watch quarterback horrors. Yesterday, 59 minutes of that game were terrible. I mean, it was like watching, forget paint dry. Paint dry was exciting compared to what the Patriots and Jets were. It sucks when teams have bad quarterbacks. I want all these good teams, all these teams to find good quarterbacks. It makes the league that much better. But the Jets are going back to the drawing board. This guy ain't it.